Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
Action!
Welcome to From Beneath the Hollywood Sign. If you love old movies, Hollywood history, or the golden age of filmmaking, you've come to the right place. This is the podcast that talks about amazing stories of Tinseltown from another era. Hear fascinating conversations with writer-producer Steve Cubine, who quite literally lives just beneath the Hollywood sign, and actress-writer Nan McNamara. Now your hosts, Steve and Nan.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of From Beneath the Hollywood Sign, and we've got a very special episode for you today. As we've mentioned, we're approaching our 100th episode, which is very exciting. I know we probably mentioned that a time or two.
No, I'm sure this is the first time people are hearing about it.
But we do have a very special guest for our 100th, so I'm going to tease that again.
Yep.
But you don't reach a number like that without an incredible team behind you. So Nan and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to shed some light on the people behind the scenes of From Beneath the Hollywood Sign and get into their minds and find out what their stories of their film-loving selves are. So today, we're going to let you meet the real heart and soul behind our show.
Yes.
Yeah, baby.
And yeah, right? We're going to talk about, as Steve mentioned, their origin stories in cinema, how they became lovers of classic cinema. We're also going to talk about some of the encounters that one of them might have had with some of the classic cinema stars that we love to talk about. So let's just jump in, Steve, and introduce our guests.
Oh, perfect. As executive producer and post-production supervisor, my man, LINDSAY SCHNEBLY, he's responsible for all the pod's audio elements, recording, editing, mastering of the final mix. He does it all. LINDSAY brings decades of broadcast audio and video production experience to the table, and also he hosted radio and television shows in Arizona before he moved to California as a producer at Disney Broadcast Services, which is the broadcast production department of television and radio stations originating content for Disney parks around the world. He became director of media relations at Disneyland. He created his own production company, the Lion's Share Group, and transitioned to freelance work at Walt Disney Studios, producing video news releases and electronic press kits for Disney television shows and television movies. He later produced content for Universal Studios and 20th Century Fox. Linds became an accomplished voice actor, rep by the William Morris Agency, where he did meet his future wife, the beautiful Nan McNamara. So we're very glad that that happened. And From Beneath the Hollywood Sign is actually Lindsay's third airwave podcast. He provides the voice of the curator for The Box of Oddities, and he's the co-creator, co-host, and co-executive producer of The Shallow End with Schnebly and Toth. So welcome, Linz.
Thank you. I'd forgotten that I'd done all that stuff. Yeah, and I was just going to add, meeting Nan at William Morris, the running joke, because we met in the lobby while we were waiting to audition, and the running joke for the past 21 years of marriage has been that our agent gets 10% of the marriage as a way of brokering that relationship.
Well, let me introduce our next guest, who is our associate producer, and we like to call him, Steve and I, our lifesaver, and
Yes, he is.
our ace researcher, John Price Richey, who is a lifelong Memphian who graduated from college in North Carolina as an English literature major. He grew up consuming film, and I am not kidding when we say that. I mean, you can ask him about most titles and he will know something about it if he hasn't seen it 3 times already. At 6 years old, his favorite director was Alfred Hitchcock, okay? And he convinced his babysitter to help him film a 30-second version of The Birds, which his mother let him watch. So we're going to talk about all of that.
That's an episode in itself, I think.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Throughout his childhood, his favorite outing was heading to the local Blockbuster. Remember those? Blockbuster
Oh,
Video?
I miss Blockbuster.
I know, me too. You get to see what was available that night. Was the film you wanted going to be available? And that's where he rented all the Academy Award-winning films of the 20th century. In high school, he discovered his love for foreign cinema and discovered the Criterion Collection. As an advocate for physical media, he owns over 2,000 DVDs and 300 VHS tapes.
Wow.
So you could set up your own blockbuster, JP.
I could. It's a problem. You never have room for them.
He believes a life watching great films, consuming coffee, reading good books, and sipping cocktails with loved ones is a life well lived. I would so agree with that. Welcome, John Price Ritchie.
Thank you. Big
Hey,
fan.
John. Big fan.
Big fan.
Big fan of y'all.
Well, we're a big fan of you two, clearly, because you really have, as Steve said, helped us get to where we are.
If you guys weren't here, it would just be me and Nan talking.
Well, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
Into the ether.
I wish people could see the emails that JP sends after he has gone through the episode with these laundry list, literally to the second of, here's what you said, here's what you meant to say.
I'm always hesitant to send those. I'm like, I feel like a
please.
jackass sending them
No.
at times.
No,
you have saved us so many times, JP.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you catch things that we just don't catch. We're
Yeah.
in the heat of the moment when you're in there, you're talking
course.
about it. Like
Right.
I'll say Jane Meadows when I meant Audrey Meadows, and you catch it every time, and I
Right.
love that.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a
Well,
godsend.
thank you.
It truly is. One of the things when we have guests on that we love to talk about is we love to find out how each person came to their love of classic cinema. So, JP, let's start with you, and then Linz will ask you the same question. Who introduced you to the golden age of Hollywood? How did it come about that you love classic cinema?
Well, I suppose, and my mom always tells the story of old Hollywood, of classic cinema. Apparently, I was 6 months old, and we had just arrived in our beach house, and she was kind of unloading and had to put me down. It was late at night, and she kind of just put me on the ground and put on the TV, and all she could find was Lawrence Welk and Norma Zimmer singing and dancing. And my jaw, 6 months old, jaw was on the floor just
Oh
like
my gosh.
mind blown.
JP, the fact that you know who Norma Zimmer is makes me
Yeah.
love you even more.
Yeah.
But 6
Everyone
months
acts
old, my mom
surprised.
says,
6 months.
you were obsessed with Norma Zimmer on the Lawrence Welk show.
Crazy.
You know, of course, don't remember it, but I'm like, oh, yeah, I believe it.
That's
But I guess
awesome.
every Christmas I can remember watching It's a Wonderful Life and White Christmas growing up as long as I can remember. So I guess that was early introduction and loving Jimmy Stewart. But really it was, I guess, 6 or 7 when I watched The Birds. Somehow my mom kind of is an old Hollywood movie fan as well. Katharine Hepburn is her all-time favorite actress. I think, yeah, it was The Birds and then really getting into Alfred Hitchcock.
What was
That's
your
great.
second Alfred Hitchcock movie that you watched after The Birds? Do you remember?
I think it was probably Vertigo, and that was one at 7 or 8. That's always been one I loved, I think, because of just the colors. I think it's why I was so obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Linz, how about you? What was your origin story? I mean, aside from your wife co-hosting a podcast about classic cinema.
I remember vividly, I think I was 9 years old in my dad's kind of den and a small TV. And I think it was a Sunday night, I'm not sure, but The African Queen was on TV. And he was, for whatever reason, explaining to me who the characters were, what their background was, knowing that at my age I wouldn't quite understand a lot of the tension in the plot. But I just remember being so mesmerized by how real it was and having trouble thinking, these people are reciting lines? They're using a script? Because I had that sense of what we get in a really well-made film where we're eavesdropping on something happening almost in real time. And even then, being so aware of how classic films like The African Queen, but comparing that look of a film to something that we would have seen in color at a theater was a distinct, it was the first time I was aware that there was this whole other era, if you will, of film that didn't look anything like what we would see when we all got in the car and went to a theater.
I'm curious, also, just to kind of jump in on that, I think everybody knows that film noir is my favorite genre. If I have a choice between a June Haver musical and an Audrey Totter film noir, I'm going with Audrey Totter every time. Do you guys have a favorite genre? And I'll start with JP.
I do, and it's a very specific and odd genre, but I love movies that are about movies.
Yes!
So like
Oh,
Singing in the
cool.
Rain, The Bad and the Beautiful,
Yes,
Sunset
yes.
Boulevard, and even later ones, I guess like 8.5, My Favorite Year. There's so many great ones, and some that tell about the artist and the director and how it destroys relationships and those around them, and also some that just kind of romanticize Hollywood or paint the not so glamorous sides as well, like Sunset Boulevard and Mulholland Drive, even of this century.
Absolutely. I'm curious, JP, have you seen The Star with Bette Davis?
I have not. No, but I need to write that down.
It's so good because it really talks about this washed up actress in Hollywood and how Hollywood can be not so kind as you get a little older in Hollywood.
Right.
It's such a good movie. I think you'd like it.
Thank you.
What about you, Lance?
Hands down, musicals. I'm just absolutely in love with musicals. And I think I got a lot of that from my mom because I think that was her favorite genre of film. And so we were always seemingly watching musicals on TV. And I got to work on the remake of Cinderella, 1997-98, with Whitney Houston as the fairy godmother and Brandy as Cinderella. And there's that scene fairly early on where Cinderella and the prince meet in this ballroom, and it leads into 10 minutes ago. And I remember watching that being filmed in this giant soundstage, and I had tears running down my cheeks because that moment where Cinderella and the prince are falling in love was so overwhelming to me. And musicals have always had that power of, even though it doesn't really happen in everyday life where somebody is so happy they burst into song, to me, every time I see that, I think, yeah, that's how life should be to me.
Well, and I just want to add your mom's influence, Lynn's. She joined a tap dancing group of senior women. I mean, they had costumes, they performed. So clearly,
No way.
Yes, we have photos. I mean,
That's amazing.
What was the name of the group again, honey? Do you remember?
I can't remember the name of that group, but that led her to go and form her own group called the Star Spangled Seniors, which were retirees that would go around to retirement homes, and they would put on this 45-minute show
They would
of
sing,
old
and they had
show
sketches.
tunes, and they had wacky sketches in between, and it was so much fun to watch them do. It was really cool.
Wait, was that the Hot Flashes? That was the
Hot
other group.
Flashes.
That's
That was the
it,
tap
the
dance
Hot
group.
Flashes.
Very good. Way
Yes,
to go,
What a
very
great
good.
name.
wasn't it? Yeah,
It is a
it was
great name.
genius.
Let me jump in with another question here for you two. What actors or actresses from classic cinema were your favorites when you were growing up, and has it changed at all over the years?
I guess Jimmy Stewart was one I always, and Cary Grant were two I loved as a kid. I loved Audrey Hepburn and Grace Kelly, and those have kind of remained constant. But I guess later I really loved Greta Garbo a lot, and Ninotchka was one I kind of fell in love with, and just her kind of confidence and audacity to just be like, I'm done, like, peace out, Hollywood. And I just had so much respect for that as well.
Me too, JP.
And I was like, good for
love
you.
that. I love the ones that know when to leave the party.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, she's still considered phenomenal because her time was just like, I'm done and I don't want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then I guess SC Sakal is one I've always
Yes!
loved
Cuddles.
my whole life.
I love
Cuddles.
Cuddles. I love
He's been
Cuddles.
a lifelong favorite.
Oh my God, I look for him in movies. If he's in the movie, you know it's going to be
It's
good.
going to be great. Absolutely.
Yeah. Lynn's, how about you? Favorite actors or actresses?
Not to
of the
overuse
genre?
the expression hands down, but Cary Grant is just everything. I mean, delicious to watch, so good at being funny, so good at being scared, so good at everything he did. It was just such a compelling face that you would watch him read a phone book. I mean, he was just an amazing talent. And then on the female side, again, Katharine Hepburn, without question. What movie was it, Nancy? We were just watching a few weeks ago, and she walked into the room, and I turned to you, and my jaw was just dropped. I was just agog. She looked so gorgeous and sexy and confident, and like I got the world by a string. And I thought,
Was that Kate or was that Nan?
well, you're right. Those two frequently happen a lot.
What I love about Katharine Hepburn is she was beautiful as a young woman, and she had such a long career, as we know, and she remained that beautiful woman till the day she died. I mean, I just think of her, and part of it, I think, is that confidence, that she really carried within her.
I love that she never went to the Oscars. Even when she was going to win, she was just like, no, not for me.
I love that too so much. I have a lot of respect for that. I'm going to ask the impossible question that I'm sure we all get asked all the time. Do you have a favorite film, or maybe a favorite 3 films? I know that's almost impossible because mine shifts and morphs all the time. I'm just curious, what films resonate the most with you? JP?
Classic film. One of my favorite films of all time is The Red Shoes.
Yes.
But I can't, because it's not, if we're talking old Hollywood though, I would have to say City Lights. That's That's
wow.
Great
I love that
choice.
movie. I think
Great
it's
choice.
fantastic.
It's almost everything that cinema should be. I mean, it's so joyful and so many elements there.
It is, and even with talkies still going on, Chaplin was like, no, they're going to be dead in 5 years, tops. And he just kept making silent. It was like, I'm going to keep making silent films, even though the world doesn't want that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of classic film, it would be a tie between Singin' in the Rain, there's the musical part, and then North by Northwest, which to me is just as close to a perfect film as you'll ever find. And then sort of straddling classic coming into, I don't know what you would call it, contemporary modern day cinema, The Sting, which was what, 73? Again, not to overuse a phrase, but that to me has long been probably the most perfect film I've ever seen. The casting, the music, the costuming, the plot, it was all just such, we just watched it, I think, a few months ago.
Yeah,
Nan and I
it's
did.
right up
and
there.
just
It's
marveled
one
at
of-
how it is ageless. It holds up so well.
Yeah.
And anything with Robert Redford and Paul Newman is going to be money in the bank.
Well, before we take the break, let's do one more question for you two, and then we'll get into some more specifics after the break about encounters that you've had and that 30-second version of the birds. So a final question before the break. If you're channel surfing, let's say you're on our favorite channel, TCM, and you come across a film, what's the film you've seen a million times that you have to stop and watch the rest of the film from whatever point you've started at?
Wow.
Linz, why don't you go first?
That's one of the hardest questions I've ever been asked.
Living with you, I could tell you
Yeah.
it's not classic cinema per se, but you cannot not watch The Godfather if it's on.
Okay. Yeah.
Either one or
would-
two.
That would be it. One or two.
But it's not, it's not
That was one of
classic.
15 title cards that was flipping through my head. But yeah, I think you're right. And I appreciate your help with my answer. But that's either one or two. And I'm one of the people that actually thinks Godfather 2 was better than the first.
JP, how about you? When you're channel surfing and you come across a classic cinema film, which one do you have to just stop and watch?
First one that comes to mind is Shop Around the Corner.
Oh, yes.
adore
Great
that
choice.
movie.
Me too. Great choice.
Absolutely adore it. 10 times better than You've Got Mail. They kind of...
Yeah.
Sleepless in Seattle's great. You've Got Mail is awful.
But that final scene with the dog in the park, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
That's a pretty sweet scene. But
You know, every single time that scene comes up and I know it's coming and I still get weepy.
yeah. But Shop Around the Corner, what a great cast, too. I mean,
yeah.
Such a great cast.
And Aaron Slubitsch was just kind of a genius.
He
And
really
Yeah.
was.
I love like lesser known ones, like The Merry Widow is a phenomenal
Yes.
musical with
That is a
Maurice Chevalier.
Yes, great musical.
And
God,
never
nobody
talked
knows that one.
about. Love it. I know. I have a bootleg DVD of it because it's like impossible to find a copy of that.
wow. Well, open that Blockbuster store, I'm telling you.
Absolutely. I know.
Well, I think it's time to take our break. So, Steve, what is this week's Hollywood Pop Quiz?
The pop quiz question this week, and this is just for you, JP, and this will come into play later. The question is, in Alfred Hitchcock's 1963 masterpiece, The Birds, which we will be talking about, the leading man, Rod Taylor, played a character named Mitch Brenner. Hitchcock had a very specific reason for naming him Mitch. What was that reason?
What a great question.
That's a great question.
good
Okay,
one.
we'll be right back with the answer and more with our fabulous From Beneath the Hollywood Sign team right after this.
All right, the whole crew will be right back, but first another stop on the Hollywood tour. In a minute, you're going to hear a reference to the 1966 film Grand Prix. It stars James Garner as a Formula One race car driver. Well, interestingly, Garner, who was actually 6'3", was too tall for Formula One racing. So in order to fit in the cars, his car seats had to be removed. Not the most comfortable ride either. Producers just gave him a towel or a mat to sit on, but his head was still too high to look right. So the roll bars needed to be removed and replaced with taller bars so they'd look realistic and not be noticeably shorter than the top of Garner's helmet. James Garner was a real-life race car driver and owner of a racing team, and get this, he also drove the pace car at the Indianapolis 500 3 times. And now back to, well, everyone from Beneath the Hollywood Sign.
Welcome back, everybody. We have a really great personal episode today where we introduce the real heart and soul behind our show, our behind-the-scenes geniuses, which we're going to get into that a little bit later. But before we dig deeper into their origin stories and their love of old movies, we want to give a shout out to our Listener of the Week. And this week, our Listener of the Week is Kim Dyer. She's a new listener, and she really wants to see episodes about Mary Pickford and Cecil B. DeMille. And she also asked if we would maybe do an episode about Max Factor and the makeup artists of old Hollywood. So stay tuned, Kim. We're working on some fun stuff for you.
Oh, those are great suggestions. Thanks, Kim.
Great ideas.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to dive back in here today, and I really want to get into this 30-second version of The Birds, JP. We're going to talk about it. I understand your babysitter helped you film it, and just, first of all, the fact that your mom let you watch it at 6 is phenomenal. I love that. Tell us about that experience. What was that like, and how did it come about?
It was honestly a very DIY kind of. My babysitter, he was a student of my mom's, the college where my mom worked, and he was always kind of the student body president, but he was also just kind of the class clown, and he also made kind of funny videos. And I always kind of had interest in like recreating shorter, tiny little snippets of classic movies. So we did a couple, but The Birds is probably the one, like the first one we did and the most memorable. So what we did was, and it was almost 20 years ago, we just filmed it from a MacBook, honestly, a laptop. We just kind of put it out there, and we pretty much did paper cutouts. And, you know, like for Alfred Hitchcock, we drew a really big paper cutout and put him in a blue suit and everything. And for the pet store, for instance, we just got a piece of paper and wrote pet store on the and we got sticks outside, and we just paper cutouts. We had the characters, and we just put little birds, and we just kind of threw them all around. For a boat, at the beginning, we had a bathtub boat, and that was the boat she came on, and birds attacking Tippi Hedren, and just little sounds that are kind of exist on iMovie. We just kind of used all those sounds.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Do you
so
have
much.
a copy of it, JP?
That was my next question. We've got to see it. Aww.
Yes, I do. It's something else.
And by the way, we'll put that YouTube link in the show notes. How does it
I
hold
would
up? Are
love
you
to
still
see
proud
that.
of your work all these years later?
Sure.
You know, JP, I think we've talked about this. My touchstone movie was The Poseidon Adventure, 72.
Yeah.
And I didn't film it, but my brother and I used to make all the characters. We just make little paper things, and we would literally play Poseidon Adventure, where we'd turn over like a cardboard box, and we would create this dining room. And it's funny how the imagination is so sparked by the movies you watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is very
and it was
sweet.
a blast.
I
It did not
bet.
take 30 seconds to make, but it was a lot of fun.
That's
I'll
very
bet.
cool.
You have something else about my mom letting me watch it or something like that?
Oh
Was
yeah,
that-
I love that she allowed you to watch it at 6.
I think she kind of knew I was into classic cinema, and I never got scared easily, I guess. So she was like, yeah, why not? So
Did any part of the movie scare you? Because I have one moment where I actually had nightmares about it. Did any of that occur with you?
I don't remember. I guess that one scene where Tippi Hedren goes into the room by herself and all those birds start flying at her.
Yeah.
I think probably was the part that maybe freaked me out the most.
Well, for me, it was a scene where Jessica Tandy goes to the farmer's house and she sees him all pecked up in his bedroom. Oh, I still have
I remember
nightmares.
that.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
It is terrifying. And as she's running down the hallway and she's just completely off balance from it. Oof. Linz, tell us about your first experience actually seeing a film in the theater, because that's always a key moment for a young person.
Yeah. And it's thanks to my dad, one of my most vivid and early memories. And it actually happened all of about, I'm going to say 12 miles from where we are right now in Hollywood at the Cinerama Dome at Sunset and Vine, built, I want to say in 1963, I think. And the plans were there were going to be 20-something of these all over the country. For people who don't remember, they were these geodesic domes, very funky outside, and then inside these huge, huge screens. And it was a summer vacation in 1966. My grandparents lived in Los Angeles in Boyle Heights, and we would drive out every summer from Tucson and stay with them. 8 people in a 2-bedroom apartment in Boyle Heights, which in hindsight, I think, how on earth did they make that happen? But one day my dad took me to the Cinerama Dome in Hollywood, and it was Grand Prix with Eva Marie Saint and James Garner and Yves Montand, I believe, right?
Yes, it was, yes.
So I was 5 years old, and I remember being in this cavernous theater and this giant screen and the score and the racing footage and the car crashes, and I was just drop-jawed at the spectacle of it. And it was, even at age 5, that very first awareness of how film could take you from one moment in time to another with just a cut. My head was just overwhelmed by all this information, the film and the score and the story and the noise. And I was
and Eva Marie Saint.
And Eva Marie Saint, who was such a mesmerizing experience. And I am so grateful to my dad for thinking, Linz would probably like this. He's 5. He likes cars. I'm sure my dad got a lot more out of it than I did. But I remember driving home just thinking that's the most amazing thing I'd ever experienced in my 5 years of life up to that point.
Wow, that's impressive. That's your first, was a Cinerama Dome. Wow,
Yeah.
Where do you go from there?
Yeah, pretty hard to beat that.
All right, shifting gears a little bit, and this question's for you, JP. I kind of found in just talking to people about movies that most people under 30 would never dream of watching a black and white movie. Why do you think classic movies resonated so profoundly with you and other people of your generation?
Right now, especially, I think with kind of me and a very smaller portion of my generation, it's kind of the world that people that want to know what it's like to live in the world without social media and internet kind of poisoning our everyday lives. And even like going further before television, essentially. And what was that like when people just kind of sat around all day and watched TV and instead really just kind of went out and talked to one another was kind of a huge thing. And these big grand parties were more of the thing back then. And so I just always say, oh, it looked so romantic. But granted, times were still not so great back then as well. So it is kind of a double-edged sword. But I think honestly just living vicariously through people who did not have to experience the troubles of isolation and social media.
Yeah, good answer. Wow.
That's a really great point, because we forget that for most of our lives, the three of us, social media, it was not even an issue. And even just this syndrome of staring into your phone, all of that is something your generation has lived with since you were born.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to shift gears again here a little bit. Lindsay, because I know you pretty well, I know that you met a lot of classic cinema stars when you worked at Disney. So I thought it'd be fun to just do a little rapid fire thing. And I'm going to name the person and just say the first thing that comes into your mind based on your interaction with them, okay? Because there's a few, so we'll kind of test your ability to respond quickly. Okay. Ooh, this is a list. Elizabeth Taylor.
As gorgeous as you would imagine in person as she was on camera, and incredibly full of life and just sexier than sin.
Ronald Reagan.
Not as sexy as Elizabeth Taylor. He had a real physical presence. I interviewed him in 1990 for the 35th anniversary of Disneyland because he was one of the hosts of the original opening ceremony, which was broadcast on ABC in July of 1955. And so we brought him back for this 35th anniversary. And so we did an interview with him, and an extremely kind person, but a tremendous, tremendous amount of presence and charisma. You could see why he had started as a movie star.
Angela Lansbury.
Again, exactly what you would expect. One of the classiest, kindest, unassuming, just pure, polite women that I'd ever had the opportunity to interview. Just a dream.
Dick Van Dyke.
Incredibly funny, spry, young at heart, whip smart, quick, and, still putting on a coat and tie and looking like $1 million.
Julie Andrews.
I think I had a crush on Julie Andrews from the first time that I saw her as a kid. And she was, if it's possible, even prettier in person than she was on camera. And again, that genteel, British, proper, warm, just a delightful, delightful woman.
Okay, just two more quick ones. Dean Jones.
Dean Jones, that was a real big deal for me because I grew up, my dad would take all of us kids to Disney films. And
Herbie the Love Bug.
All of those Love Bug films came back, and I was working with him on a remake of The Love Bug and getting to meet him and then interview him at his house in Encino afterward. And he was just so incredibly kind, and he did not project. There was zero ego. There was zero pay attention to me. He was just, he knew the body of work that he had, and he was an extremely kind man.
And finally, Robert Cummings.
Robert Cummings. It was in kind of the twilight of his years, and I think one of the last appearances that he made, but it was on that same day that we interviewed Ronald Reagan, because he and Art Linkletter and Fess Parker, who I forgot to include in this list, were the original hosts of the opening day at Disneyland. And they all had amazing stories. Bob Cummings was extremely nice. Fess Parker had some incredible stories about opening day at Disneyland that will never be published, but we're just incredible.
That's a tease.
That's what we call a tease in the industry, yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
You've met so many incredible people, Lynn.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, hey, I've got a question for JP, and it's sort of springboarding off of what we were talking about earlier. Now, how do you think that we as a podcast, or, TCM, or anybody who really promotes classic films, how can we better reach younger movie lovers? And we're always thinking about how are ways we can bring in young movie lovers into the fold.
Yeah, I think about this a lot. I think, at least everywhere else, I probably can't speak for New York and LA, but the art house movie theater is kind of a thing of the past, where they would just do, today we're showing Vertigo, tomorrow we're showing 8.5. I think it's just kind of showing classic movies is kind of what they focus on, I think, and they don't really have those here, or at least in where I am, they don't have them, and throughout the country, they kind of don't really do those, besides every once in a while, a screening or something like that will pop up once every 3 months. But I think that, and also doing more screenings, would help a lot.
Yeah.
So instead of having another Disney live action remake, you can have a classic movie you're screening as well.
Thank
and I
you.
think that would really help a lot.
Yeah, just access,
Yeah, absolutely.
Expose young people to these movies in a fun way, not like kind of a bookish, kind of studying sort of schoolish way.
Yeah, absolutely. Even classrooms, they could bring them back in the classrooms of what you're talking about and how that can relate to everyday life. I know even with that, you were talking about the 50th anniversary of Jaws and how they talked about the mayor of Jaws is really just kind of profit over people, keep the beaches open, and how you have kind of Robert Shaw, the working class hero, the scientist, kind of intellectual of Richard Dreyfuss, and then the officer of the law, Roy Scheider, and how these three different people work together to kind of create change, and how that would just be really great to show, this is how you do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to add to that movie theater idea, or that lack of it, JP, that especially with people not going back to the theaters like they want them to post-pandemic, why doesn't somebody experiment with that? Think about it. The 50-year anniversary of Jaws in the summer, what a great opportunity. Figure that out and see what happens. See if you can get the audience back into the theaters.
It's a great idea.
I think you have it.
And it still brings money in. I know because Jaws did a 40th 10 years ago, and it brought in 1.2 or something like that. So it still will help, at the end of the day.
I'm so curious, and this is just a little side question. I think when we all started watching movies as kids, I don't know, I can't speak for Lindsay and Nan, but we would go to the drive-in movie theater. That's how I first got introduced to movies, which is its own little experience just to have that. But JP, did you ever go to drive-ins?
Did you go to the one on Summer?
Yes. That was our place.
Yeah, I went there. I went there a couple times actually.
Oh my gosh,
it unfortunately closed 2 years ago. I think
somebody told me it closed.
But I went there a couple times. It was still open. I saw one of the Toy Stories there. I think it was Toy Story 3 I saw there or something like that.
So what did you think of the drive-in experience?
I loved it. I thought it was kind of great, And then there was just you had to walk half a mile to the concession stands as well.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Oh, I loved it. That was one of the things I loved about the pandemic. Not that there was much to love about the pandemic, but they started opening up outdoor movie theaters for people who didn't want to be inside, and drive-ins sort of made a comeback, which I'm thrilled about, and I hope it continues.
I think so too.
That's cool.
All right, one more question for Linz, and then we have a question that will, the same question we'll ask to each of you guys. Linz, what's the biggest thing you've learned as producer of this podcast?
That's a great question. I've learned a ton. I'm struck by the fact in putting this show together every week with the three of you that radio in America began in 1920 or 21. KDKA in Pittsburgh, I think, was the very first radio station in America. And it was a person talking into a microphone, or two people talking into a microphone, and either telling stories or news or playing music. And then radio progressed into television, and then television got so high tech with high definition and then satellite and then cable and then streaming, and all those things are still there. But podcasting is such a huge part of life in America now. And the fact that it essentially comes all back full circle to people talking into a microphone. And I just think that's fascinating that we have made all that progress, but it just goes to show the power of the spoken word, even with no video to go with it. Whether you watch this pod on YouTube or not, that you can listen to any podcast just on your phone, and everything has come back full circle to it's a person talking into a microphone and telling a story. I think that's really cool. Yeah.
That was a great answer.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
it really is. And it's so true. I mean, it really all comes back to that simple act of a
We're back
person
to radio all
communicating,
over again.
yes, with a microphone. It
Yeah.
goes out to hundreds and thousands and millions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So I have a question for both of you guys. Do you have a favorite episode of From Beneath the Hollywood Sign so far?
Absolutely. It, to me, is without question Greg Boutzer, Hollywood's legal Lothario,
Oh.
which was episode number 20, by the way.
I love that. I love that.
Because I had never heard of him, ever heard of him. And by the end of that episode, I was just fascinated that somebody who was not on camera, was not an actor, even though he was as gorgeous as any male actor of his time, that he could have such an impact on so many people in Hollywood. And I think, Steve, you had that quote from
I think it was Robert Wagner's quote.
Robert
yes.
Wagner, who
Yeah.
said something like Greg Boutzer is the most famous person in Hollywood that no one's ever heard of, or something like that.
Yeah, who never appeared on screen ever.
And just, I mean, the fact that that guy had the chutzpah to start his law practice the way he did, taking the $5,000 that was a gift from his father-in-law and buying suits and going to the Brown Derby and lunching. I thought that was an incredible episode that somebody I'd never heard of could be so compelling. It was fascinating to me.
Oh, I love that. What about you, JP?
I gotta go Hitchcock. The Hitchcock's collaborators. You know, lifelong Hitchcock fan. It's Hitchcock.
I love that episode too.
And by the way, that's episode 68.
Well, this has been so much fun, especially because we learned new things about both of you guys, and to get to share you with the audience, because you guys have just helped us so much.
Yeah, I don't think people really realize how much work that you guys do behind the scenes. You know, we're
Yeah.
the voices of it, and we get all the emails telling us how great we are. You guys are the great ones, and we just appreciate it so much.
Yes, we do.
It's an honor
indeed.
to do
Yeah.
it. Someday we
Well-
should release an episode that hasn't been edited so people can appreciate just what goes into.
Oh, that would be very scary.
Oh, we wouldn't do that.
Well, before we finish the episode, we have to hear the answer to this week's Hollywood Pop Quiz. Steve?
That's right. And the question was, and this is just for you, JP, in Alfred Hitchcock's 63 classic, The Birds, the leading man, played by Rod Taylor, was named Mitch Brenner. Hitchcock had a very specific reason for naming him Mitch. What was it? Any takers?
No clue.
I didn't know
know.
either. I just ran across this story and I thought it was so fascinating. Well, it seems that Rod Taylor's character was named Mitch because Hitchcock and his team were having a little trouble negotiating the deal to film at the Tides restaurant in Bodega Bay where the film was shot. And the owner of the restaurant finally agreed, but he had two conditions. One, the leading man had to be named after him, and two, he had to receive a speaking role in the movie. So of course, Rod Taylor got named Mitch because the owner's name was Mitch Zanich, and the guy got a one line, after Melanie's attacked by the seagull, Mitch can be heard saying to Rod Taylor's character, "What happened, Mitch?" So it was
Nice.
just good. It was
I
good
love it.
producing. That's why he
That's
got named
cool.
Mitch.
Good for
Had
him.
to negotiate a deal.
I love that story. That is amazing.
I wonder if his heirs are still getting residuals.
Maybe. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We so appreciate you spending this time with us, and we would love it if you would give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you probably know you can watch the podcast on YouTube, and if you do that, give us a like and subscribe. You can find our handle on social media at From Beneath the Hollywood Sign on Facebook and Instagram.
And we love your emails. Please keep them coming. You can email us at info@frombeneaththehollywoodsign.com.
I think we should all do this together. That's this week's view.
From Beneath the
Beneath
Hollywood.
the Hollywood sign.
You've been listening to From Beneath the Hollywood Sign with Steve Cubine and Ann McNamara, the podcast that celebrates amazing stories of Tinseltown from its golden era. Join us next week for another episode. and learn something else about Hollywood you probably never knew. Take a moment and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review, and tell your friends about us too. It'll help grow the podcast. Visit Steve's website at FromBeneathTheHollywoodSign.com. The executive producers are Steve Cubine and Nan McNamara. Executive producer and post-production supervisor, LINDSAY. Associate producer and researcher, John Price Ritchie. This podcast is part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. Visit airwavemedia.com to listen and subscribe to their other fine shows like The Box of Oddities and The Shallow End with Schnebly and Toth. Copyright 2025, all rights reserved. That's a wrap.
Oh, this is funny.
Oh boy, okay.
I see some Easter eggs coming.
If this podcast has a dirty, dirty secret,
That's a dirty
That's
secret.
it.
That's a dirty
You
secret.
could expose me. Yeah.
We won't tell anyone. We won't tell anyone.